Let's bring in Eric right now.
Eric, welcome,
Eric
brother.
Kang.
What's up, guys?
What's going on, man? Thanks
Not
for
much.
coming to the show today. Welcome.
Yeah, of course. Not every day you get to be on a show with a live DJ, so it's pretty.
Oh well, I'm
Yes.
happy to. Hey, I'll do a stream for you anytime, man. Just let me know. You are actually our. I was just saying this a couple of minutes ago, but I think you're our third Avalabs guest in the past month. So
and one
Will is.
right?
What's that?
And one ex Avalabs.
And one ex Avalabs. Yeah, Will was here a couple weeks ago.
I mean, he is ex, but is he really? Like, I assume he's constantly in contact with you guys. He's one of those guys that I know that he'll keep in touch, right?
Yeah. He'll constantly ping us, constantly shit post on Twitter. You know how he does.
Yeah, exactly, man, exactly. I mean, I kind of want to emphasize, right? Like, we believe in the subnet, so does Avalabs, and you can see from the guests that are coming on the show and like imparting their knowledge and experiences. So thanks for coming to the show, man.
Definitely.
Much appreciated.
It's great to have you here. So before we get into, I know Firestorm has a lot of details that he wants to touch on, but before we get into that, I thought we could just get a little bit of like your background, your story, how you got into crypto, how you got involved with Avalabs, and where you're going from here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I joined Avalabs about 2.5 years ago, September 2020, right before mainnet launched. It seems like a lifetime now looking back. But I think I still got a few more years ago. And I joined before Avalabs. I was in consulting for a number of years, about 4.5 years, mostly at PwC, advising clients on M&A deals, mostly private equity and Fortune 500 stuff. Once in a while, I'll get mixed in with like a tech diligence. And that's actually how I found out about blockchain and crypto. I was working and they were like, oh, do you want to join this like think tank? This was like back in 2017. Honestly, don't think like the big four and other like corporates have moved that much in that span compared to like native innovation, obviously. But it was definitely interesting. That's also when I bought my first ETH, Bitcoin, got really interested in kind of Ethereum and that whole ecosystem. And then I just followed it as like kind of a passive investor for a number of years. I joined Avalabs, honestly, just through a LinkedIn post. So nice job recruiting. So nothing glamorous there, but since I've joined, worked on a lot of different deals. These days I focus mostly on DeFi, but I do like the odd exchange listing, onboard, a random NFT project from time to time. So I try to help out wherever I can, keeps things interesting.
Wow. Understatement after understatement, nothing glamorous, and he joins the greatest consensus innovation project since Lamport Lisco, right? Like or the Nakamoto consensus. I'm sorry.
Right.
It's like, keep them coming, man. We love these things because I'm gonna hype this shit up. So
hey, you gotta keep in mind at the time the network wasn't even live, so it's like I had no idea.
Even better, that is the true definition of conviction, is it not, man?
Yeah.
Because like a lot of people missed on Avalanche, or a lot of people missed on alternative L1s, if you will, mainly because like people didn't have conviction or didn't do the diligence to do conviction. Your conviction speaks for itself because you joined before this thing went live, right? Yes,
Yeah.
By the time it was going live, maybe a decent capital raise had happened, but like I think even the founders didn't imagine that the transactions would grow this fast, this quickly to this size. So like all the power to you, man. Like congrats. I think that's definitely glamorous. Well done.
Yeah, I mean, even 2 years in, right? I think people are still like finding out about Avalanche maybe for the first time.
Sure.
So we still got a long ways to go, but
Yeah.
excited for all of the
Awareness is a slow burn, but like solving the underlying technology requirements is step one before you can do awareness. Otherwise, you're doing awareness is limited, right? Good story, man. And like another understatement that I caught in there is I every now and then I help some teams, this and that. I would argue you're one of the guys who go out of his way for sure to help as many as possible. And obviously you're one of the champions who've been helping us together with your team, and we truly appreciate it. So thank you, to say the least. I guess if we continue in this vein, like what is the biggest issue that's on your mind from the Avalabs business development perspective that sort of keeps you occupied and that you need or that you think needs to be solved before our scale levels up? You could answer it from an Avalanche perspective as well as overall crypto perspective. Like what's the one thing that you think we really need before we go to the next level?
Yeah. I can answer from both, and it'll be quick. So I think from an overall crypto perspective, I think crypto is still trying to find its the quote unquote killer dApp or killer use case. I don't think there's been a lot of promising developments. DeFi, NFTs. You see a lot of the enterprise stuff, right? Enterprise use cases. But I think there's still something to be said about having a dApp that can onboard the next billion users, right? And I don't mean that in a cliche way. I mean that very literally. Like, how do we get a billion people on here like Facebook did and
Totally.
Uber did before Facebook, right? And then the other thing, so on the Avalanche perspective, I think the biggest thing is getting our subnets to a state where it's like somewhat finalized in terms of like being feature complete. Right now, I think we're getting there. I think we're probably like 6 months to maybe a year out. But I think what's next on the roadmap, right? The key things: getting Avalanche Warp messaging live. We did our first transaction in December. That was I think that was a pretty big deal in the industry. But getting that actually to like production ready state probably takes a few more months. And then the other thing is we are looking to launch a kind of a managed service of sorts, calling SAMs for now, subnet as a managed service. Hoping to use that to onboard enterprises specifically.
Was that public before? Because if it was, I totally missed that.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Alpha, dude. Where's the air horn? Where's that like button?
The alpha horn. Had to sound the alpha horn.
Now, I literally have it on my list here to ask you this specifically because you've been so involved in the subnets and so involved in like projects that are launching, and from our perspective, Dexalot obviously was sort of seeded by effectively Blizzard, right? And that means we have been working with Avalabs for a long time. The technology team is amazing, right? I don't need to like praise them. I think they deserve all the possible praise out there. And the challenge has been for Dexalot, and I would argue this is not a massive challenge, but the challenge has been figuring it out together with the dev team because we are doing it for the first time from an application perspective. And I guess one way to scale this would be managed service, because Avalabs team has an incredible technology team, really good business development team, like everything is in good shape. And if this was a managed service where end-to-end an institution can be handheld, it would work quite well because institutions are sticky with no matter how bad their underlying tech or underlying solutions is. I know this pretty firsthand. I worked at a few banks. Every single one is in a constant state of migration, and every migration takes 5 years. And the reason is they try to do it in-house, to be honest with you. Right. And a managed service is amazing. Could you tell us a little bit more about that? Like, what does that look like? What do the services include? It would be amazing for us to know as well as the audience.
Yeah, I don't think I can name all the services, but
okay.
In a nutshell, right? You want to make it as easy as possible for an enterprise to onboard into crypto. I think to your point, right, in consulting, a lot of the deals we did was actually evaluating like when two companies come together, right, you're going to have to get rid of one of the IT systems in a lot of different areas, right? And it's to understand that process of kind of merging, but also like during separation deals, understanding how to set your own, right, if you're doing a greenfield company. So this is like definitely a challenge. So I think a lot of what we're trying to do is kind of smoothen that curve a little bit. So when enterprises come on, right, they need to set validator nodes, they need to set up smart contracts, right? They need to set up a bunch of peripheral infrastructure like explorers, RPCs. All that stuff is important, right, for the overall UX. So our job is to make that process as simple as possible for subnets.
I mean,
good example is the AWS announcement, right? That made nodes basically a one-click setup process. Yeah. Eventually, we're going to offer entire subnets that are essentially one-click deployment.
Yeah. And do you envision, and if this isn't possible to answer, no problem, but do you envision providing the nodes together with the stakes themselves? So, for example, if a bank wanted to launch a subnet tomorrow, obviously permissioned because they're a bank, they're never going to be or at least in the near term, they're not going to be able to do it public. But would they get a complete solution with the nodes, with the stake, and they would just plug in their smart contract in there and make it work? Or do you is the plan, to get these institutions to buy the appropriate assets to secure their network? I can see merits to both. And I'm just wondering how you guys are approaching that.
Yeah, that's a good question. Eventually, it will be kind of like a paid service offering. So like an enterprise, like kind of B2B service, right?
Mhm.
But there will be a long period of time in the beginning where we're kind of in like this bootstrap phase. We're trying to grow the
Yep.
program, figure out what to watch out for, right? So with the 2000 of Vox, I can't promise anything because like next
Bring
thing you
it
know,
down, bro. Come on, like, yeah,
knocking
you
on my
gotta
door.
bring that stuff down, man.
But in the beginning, yeah, that could definitely be a consideration for the foundation.
Dude, this is amazing news. Like, these are the things that, and like, just putting, obviously I'm not in your shoes, but like envisioning and putting myself in those shoes, like, this is where the truly cool stuff is finally happening, because you guys now have built the substrate on which stuff can be built, right? And you have the ability to customize the substrate. So if you give people a specific foundation for their application and they've just built the application on top, that's like the holy grail of scaling. And that's where the really, really cool applications that we haven't seen before, we haven't used before, start to come together. Like, just thinking about how the banks I worked for, like, just thinking about how they worked, and you give them a ready-made, more efficient and simple to deploy solution that they could just put their application on top, whether it's a trading or risk management system, like, that would save them tens of millions of dollars. In some cases, probably hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah, for some people, they don't even know like regulated parties, right? Like banks, a lot of healthcare companies, they can't be on a public chain. That's just not possible,
correct.
Right?
And like, there are, I'll give you one very good example. Like, if you, like, a bank will prefer to outsource certain services to an expert, both for liability reasons, for independence reasons, conflict of interest reasons, any number of things. And as you said, sometimes they can't be on public chains. Maybe the regulation comes and they will be, but like, I'm so excited about what you just told us, man. This is not what I was expecting, and like, this is going to be an awesome episode. Anyway, sorry. I'm talking too much, I feel like, so I'll shut up and let you talk.
You're good.
I just want to go on record as saying Sam's is just from a branding and marketing standpoint. I love it. That's so hard. Sam's, that's great. It's gonna be
Where does that come from? Is that like a Sam site, or like, what is that?
Placeholder name. We'll figure out something a little bit more creative down the road.
Got it.
Probably something snowy.
I think you got. I like Sam's.
Awesome. So then subnets as a service and a managed service. And let's be real, this is how AWS really became AWS and took the dominant share. All their successful services started out as managed services. You launch a database, they manage everything. You just put the data.
Subnet, blockchain as a service. That's what we're trying to do.
Blockchain as a service. Yeah. Amazing, man. Amazing. Okay, so that's number one. Is there a number two, or?
Yeah, I think DeFi is pretty well developed here. But I think gaming, NFTs, I think those verticals have a bit of ways to go.
Sure.
Obviously, like Avalanche is perfect for a lot of like gaming and NFT use cases, right? You saw a lot of like AAA gaming publishers, Shrapnel, Ascenders, Smashers, like all those guys, right? Much in Avalanche. It's just the development cycle takes a little bit longer. So I think for us, it's always been more about quality over quantity. So those will come, and then I think games on that front, right, would also really showcase the power of subnets, because then you can have games with millions of users around on-chain. Again, not possible on a public blockchain today.
Yeah, and I mean, look, this is an economy that you're creating, and like one of the masterpieces that, in my opinion, haven't really been talked about much or haven't really received praise was the fact that how Avalanche was launched. Right, you want to launch with stable parameters that allows it to grow, and of course, there's a lot of criticisms. Oh, the stake size is too high. Oh, like number of nodes aren't too high. Like, and like, I think people need to understand that it's a process, right? As you grow, the parameters change based on usage, based on adoption, based on, number of applications on there. So like, like the same thing applies to all of these verticals that you mentioned.
Yeah, that actually just reminded me of something else. We haven't even like touched upon like the whole permissionless blockchain side of subnets. So like, just an example, right? There's a project called Landslide. They're building a Cosmosm VM subnet. So the idea is any application from Cosmos, right, can easily port over basically like any EVM dApp on the C chain. We're thinking about doing like Rust VM subnets, maybe even a Move VM subnet. So
I saw the Move VM one as well. Look, dude, this was like pre-launch. There was something called Ethereum, right? Like it's basically Ethereum could be, obviously when I say this, I'm gonna get slaughtered. People will hate me, but it's true. Subnets basically give you the perfect solution for launching whatever previously successful blockchain with lower costs, faster finality, larger scale, you name it, right? Amazing to hear. So I guess, do you see a lot of migrations from other chains which have been hurt by various events of 2022? Like, are you seeing the number of developers active on Avalanche increasing?
Yeah, definitely. So I think, as the ecosystem develops over time, right, you definitely see a lot more projects onboarding. And I think it's safe to assume, right, each of those projects have some developers. Maybe they all share developers. I don't know. But and also
that only happens on some of the chains. Most of the projects that I've seen and we've seen, they have all their own development teams. Yeah.
I'm gonna mention that too much, but and then internally, like when I joined 2 years ago, we had 30 people total. Nowadays, our engineering team is like 90 plus people. We have maybe 30 or 40 more people in product. So definitely a beefy kind of technical arm. I think the other thing to maybe mention, I know that some sites show our developers numbers going down. I think a lot of those sites, they count active developers a certain way. They might count multi-chain dApps a certain way, right? So there's something to be said about that. But
I mean, like the reason why I asked this question is because at the seat that you're at, you're supporting projects directly, right? Whether it's exactly your domain or not, I've seen you talk and help various people. Like I've seen you in so many chats, right? And I'm really more asking for your observation and the number of people that you talk with or number of people that you guys help versus like those, formal metrics. Formal metrics, yeah, same guy could be writing hundreds of different apps, and we've definitely seen scandals like that, right? So like the number of projects is what we're really looking for. And
it's great. To give you an idea, last year, so I actually did a count of my Telegram groups from last year. It was for like an end of the year thing. I talked to about 1,200 projects. That's myself alone. We have like 20 people on the BD team. So you do the math there.
Yeah, do the math. That's simple multiplication. Wow. Amazing, dude. Like amazing. I mean, people always ask for alpha. Oh, we're gonna release this feature. Oh, we're gonna release this incentive. This is the real alpha, right? Because in the end, like the underlying, infrastructure grows, everything on it grows as well. Because I think like the onboarding of users, whether it's normies or other chains or like that, primarily has to come through AVAX and some AVAX sort of push. Obviously, projects will definitely help, but Avalanche needs to be well understood as the solution to go, and then the projects sort of get traction afterwards. So that's great to hear, man. Yeah, great definitely. To hear. Yeah. Now, you talked about a few verticals. Are there any verticals that you think don't yet have any traction with blockchain, but should have had a lot or will have a lot? Like gaming was a big one. No economy existed before. Now a gaming economy exists where you can own a piece of something for your time. Do you see any other verticals out there that yet hasn't been explored?
I don't think there's any verticals that haven't been explored completely yet. But I do think the institutional vertical surprises me the most. I think by now, more than a decade, right after Bitcoin became a thing, I still feel like a lot of institutions don't really, want to touch it or can even touch crypto in general. Some that we talked to came and touched USDC. It becomes like this weird liability on their balance sheet. So I think and that's something we've been actively working to change. Morgan is our head of institutions here. You should have her on the show, by the way. She
was on a couple weeks ago.
Oh, she beat me to it. But she's been working like tirelessly to talk to banks, talk to traditional asset managers, hedge funds. We have this institutional DeFi subnet that was announced a couple months ago. That's going to be kind of our cornerstone piece. And then there's also a lot of projects looking to onboard real world assets, introduce process efficiencies, that type of thing. So I think up to this point, it's always been like, hey, go bankless, bank the unbanked with crypto. And a lot of people take almost like a libertarian kind of view of DeFi. It's like you either go bank or no bank, right? There's no in between.
Right.
But I think institutions have a lot to offer to this space. And for them, it's also, most that understand it don't view it as a threat. It's more like, how can we add complementary products, make the process more efficient for everyone involved? Right?
I mean, like the funny thing about institutions is it's made up of a lot of people. And, the one big observation I had is a lot of these people have been in their seats for a long time, and they've sort of become set in their ways of doing business, right? If you spent the previous 5 years building a system, ripping it out in favor of something new that you don't know of, that you feel challenged by, doesn't happen immediately, right? It's a slow burn. You're absolutely correct. Like, one of the examples that we had on the show with Morgan, actually, if you were to move some of your trading infrastructure that runs on closed-end servers to a blockchain, you're outsourcing your server costs to the validators. At that point, you're only worried about your application, right? Obviously, I'm simplifying, but translating that to a ballpark number is tens of millions of dollars for a large bank, right? And even though these numbers do exist, the people along the way need to understand the tech. They need to feel comfortable with it. And I think it goes back to what you're saying, right? It's about awareness, understanding why this thing is a complete paradigm shift. It has benefits, and that just takes time. And I know you guys get put on a lot of pressure. Like a lot of pressure, is being exerted on Avalanche, but people forget this tech is 2 years old. The nearest competitor is still trying to catch up to the tech, in my opinion. And, those guys have been around like 5+ years, right? So in that sense, I think it's early, and it's awesome to have high standards, but some of this stuff is just time. And,
It's definitely going to be a paradigm shift, to your point, or require a paradigm shift. Just because like crypto inherently, right, it cuts out the middleman, a human middleman.
Right.
Human intermediary.
I think people see that as, oh, my function is disappearing, or oh, my role or my piece of software that managed two ends is disappearing. And in reality, while that may be true, new stuff is going to appear. It's the same thing with like ChatGPT, which seems to be the rage these days, right? Yes, it is actually able to do a lot of things very fast, but now you're going to need operators for it. There's going to be new industries that sort of opened up for it.
Well, and from a like consumer standpoint too, like most people don't want to be their own banks. So the institutional value there is pretty clear to me too. You know what I mean? Absolutely. So anyways, you were saying, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I was going to ask, what do you Gun, I don't know if he said this many times, but at least one time I've heard them say on an interview that the Avalabs capital raise and like the announcement and soon launch of Avalanche started the bull market. Hopefully he says that many times in the company. But what do you think is going to kickstart the next cycle?
I think there's a lot of macro factors to be aware of. I think there's definitely a macro backdrop to it all, right? But I think with crypto, it's gotten to a point where we kind of need to see real adoption. We talked a little bit about the killer dApp, right? I think that's part of it. I think just more broadly speaking, right, acceptance for crypto and enterprises, governments, institutions, that's going to be another key piece. And also just like less Ponzi's and less scams, I guess. There'll always be Ponzi's, and I appreciate them for what they are. But but these days, I think
I mean they're like marketing tools.
Yeah, you need sustainable tokenomics. You need a sustainable business model, right? If you're going to be here for the long haul.
Absolutely. I mean, like our view here at sort of Dexalot, or at least I should say my view, because I don't know what the other guys will say, but like regulation triggers more institutions, which triggers access. And once the access becomes available in everybody's phone, kind of like how Robinhood did stock market for people, I think that is the next big catalyst. So I kind of expect regulation to be the first domino to fall, especially at the back of what we experienced in 2022. Because the events of 2022 weren't just small stuff like pre-2018, right? I think now, there's many pieces of agenda. Yes, the gears of law still move slow, but at least they're moving now, while they weren't really moving in the previous years. So that's kind of how we look at it. I like, is there any? I guess this is a tricky question, and again, feel free if it's not answerable, don't answer. But is Avalabs pushing or working with any regulatory agencies to try and help them understand the tech? Because I think that's going to be the biggest challenge, right? Or if so, like, how do you envision this happening? I know this is a little out of business development. But...
Yeah, I don't think I comment on that specifically, but I will say that our leadership team does have a lot of experience, either before in their careers or currently, just talking to regulators, talking to different governments around the world, right? I think it's clear that crypto is on everyone's mind from a regulator government perspective, but it's just most haven't really made any actionable steps right up to this point. So we'll see.
Yep. Makes
and
sense.
Chat, just to remind you guys, if you have any questions for Eric, feel free to drop them in the chat.
I can't even see the chat.
Oh, it's actually, if you're in our StreamYard, it should just be on your right there.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
You should be able to expand the comments.
Perfect.
We're gonna be changing platforms soon, though, so very exciting stuff. Well, Eric, this has been awesome, man. We always like it. Whenever Avalabs comes through, I consider it a party myself. You know what I mean? But I guess my only questions that I have left for you are, will you come back to the show? Because we definitely want to have you come back and talk about more. I mean, this is one of those situations where every time someone from Avalabs comes through, it feels like we've only been talking for like 10 minutes. And I look at the clock and we're like getting towards the end of the show. And so I definitely will you come back to the show? And secondly, I need to get a song request from you because we do music at the beginning and end of the show. You don't have to say it right now, but you can send it to our producer. But I'm going to jump back on the turntables when we get close to the end of the show, and I'll be playing your request. That's how we like to take things out.
Can I make a request for Luigi's show? Like his intro?
His intro. Yes, as long as it's preposterous, we can do it.
Oh my God, he's giving away. There's more alpha, so I guess So you want to?
I'm not going to emphasize it, but yes, there may be alpha.
So you are requesting for when Luigi is on In the Club.
Yeah,
and he may or may not be on the club. We there is no we're not going to confirm nor deny it, right?
Yeah, in the future, whenever he gets on.
Yeah, if Luigi is ever on In the Club, what do you want me to play? I guess is the question.
Anything by 50 Cent would be good.
Oh wow, yeah. I'm a PJ by trade, so that's easy. Yeah.
99 questions. I don't know. Was that?
That's Jay-Z. You're not. Firestorm's not a rap.
I'm not a rap guy. I'm gonna turn off my camera right now.
No, you're good. You see, if I had said that, I would lose 10 rap points. But see, here's the thing. I saw a meme recently that said like when you're 14, you either go to metal or you go to rap. And Firestorm went to metal and I went to rap. So that's just how it worked. You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
Exactly, man. So, but I'll play some 50 Cent for you too. If you got a song you'd like to hear, I got you covered.
Anything.
Anything. Good. All right. I got you, man.
Yes, I will be back on the show eventually.
Yes.
Let's go.
We would love to have you back. You dropped like a ton of alpha today, man.
Dude, like you are by far the, 100% from the Avalabs team. You're the top alpha dog. Overall, do we have anybody who dropped more alpha? Like, we've had a project that dropped their trailer here for the first time. So that
probably like our co-founders probably dropped quite a bit of alpha in some of the subnet shows.
But you're very highly ranked, to say the least. We appreciate that. We truly appreciate you,
man.
Yeah.
Well, Eric, thank you so much for being here, man. And guys, we'll have the full recap tomorrow. So that'll be on our YouTube channel and also available as a podcast. But it's always awesome to have someone from Avalabs in the house. And Eric, it's been awesome to talk to you, man. Thank you.
Keep doing God's work, man.
Yeah,
there is a God. Keep on doing it. We appreciate you guys.
And come back and drop Mad Alpha for us so I can do the air horn several more times.
Yeah, we'll do. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, take care, man.
Peace.